On today's episode of the Going Deeper podcast, we are talking about the Gospel of Luke. What is up, Fathom Church, and welcome to the Going Deeper podcast. This is your host, Kyle Knight, and these are episodes we like to take a topic or a sermon series and just discuss it more, hopefully to help you go deeper in your relationship with God. I'm in our podcast studio at Fathom Church with our lead pastor, Chris Martin. Hello, Chris.
Hey, buddy.
Hello. Karina Boss is out today. So as you are listening to this, hopefully you're listening to this the week that it's put out there, but this coming weekend, we are starting a new sermon series. If you've been with us this spring, we've been we started through the book of Exodus. And so now we are at the stage of switching over for the summer to a gospel. And we'll talk about kind of our rhythms and how and why we do that in just a second. But we're starting the Gospel of Luke. So a new sermon series starting this Sunday. And we like to record a podcast every time we're doing a new sermon series, just to kind of intro it, get you excited for it, but kind of talk about it a little bit. So you're hopefully maybe a little bit prepared as we go into studying a new book of the Bible. And so, Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you. Every time we talk about a new sermon series, we kind of like to reiterate a little bit of sort of our preaching rhythms. And I think maybe a lot of people at Fathom don't know it. It's sort of an internal thing, but we kind of announce it every now and then. We'll say it from the pulpit of why we do a certain book or whatever like that. But will you just kind of walk us through our kind of preaching rhythm throughout the year, what that looks like, how it's different kind of each time of the year? And then we'll kind of go into the Gospel of Luke.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to say this on Sunday as well, but so our preaching rhythm, we're committed to expository preaching. Mm-hmm. Expository means that we are exposing the scriptures. So that means the scriptures is the main foundation on which we base our preaching, as opposed to like a topical or a theological based preaching, which I'm not making a value judgment there, but we don't choose a topic or a theological topic to discuss in our sermons. We start with the text and work from the text, and that's called expository preaching. Mm-hmm. The way that we do expository preaching is we go through books of the Bible. You don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. You can do expository preaching. If let's just say you want to talk about love, and so you say, okay, 1 Corinthians 13, sure, we're going to talk on love from 1 Corinthians 13. Mm-hmm. And if you exposit that text, sure, you're still doing expository. It doesn't have to be verse by verse through books of the Bible, but that's just how we've chosen to do this. So we work through books of the Bible expositorily, and we do this really in three main seasons. So the spring season, so January through about May, June. That whole spring season, we always do Old Testament, and we work our way through books of the Old Testament. So we are through Exodus chapter 12, and that was great. And then next January, we'll pick back up in Exodus chapter 13. In our summer months, we go from essentially May, June, whenever we're done with the Old Testament, until mid-August, we work through Gospels. So every summer we are working through the Gospels. It took us 10 years to get through the Gospel of Matthew.
Just finished last year.
We just finished last year. 125 sermons in Matthew's Gospel. But the thing that's a little bit different during the Gospel summer work is that we're taking much shorter sections. So sometimes in Old Testament narrative, we'll take a whole chapter, like in Exodus, we'll do a whole chapter at a time. But in the Gospels, we take it phrase by phrase, story by story. And so sometimes it'll take us 2 months to get through one chapter. That's kind of why it took so long. But so that's summer. And then in August, from August until about Christmas, whenever we do Advent, we during those times do New Testament. So we started Romans last year. We'll pick back up in Romans chapter 7 in September or August. So that's the plan. But the reason why we do this, there's really a couple of reasons. One is we want a steady diet of different types of literature, of different parts of our Bible. We don't want to over favor one to the other. And so this feels like a good diet of, hey, you get some Old Testament. Some churches avoid the Old Testament far too much, in my opinion. And I think some of the richest stuff that we preach through is Old Testament. So that's beautiful. Obviously preaching Paul's letters and New Testament epistles in the fall is like a great thing to do. And so working through Galatians and working through Ephesians and working through James and working through Romans, like that's great stuff. And we want to get into that instruction to the early church. I love that. Summer is really a beautiful thing because I don't ever want us to get too far away from the Gospels. Like if we only did New Testament or we only did Old Testament or we did straight through a book of the Bible, I mean, it's conceivable, like a book like Exodus would take us a year plus to get through. So that means you could go a year plus without ever really being in the life and ministry of Jesus. And I just don't love that idea.
Crazy to think that.
I mean, you can still use it as illustrations. You can still preach Christ from the Old Testament, but I think it's a healthy diet. And so I want Old Testament and I want New Testament and I want Gospels all in our diet annually here at the church. So we do that. That's the primary reason why we do those rhythms. Second, I just think my brain, and maybe this is just me and I'm the lead pastor and so I get to choose how to do this, but I kind of get bored after. Like this is 20 weeks in Exodus. It took us 20 weeks to get through the first 12 chapters. And I've enjoyed it immensely and I'm ready for something else. And then next year I'll be ready for it's like you watch a season of your favorite show and then it goes away for a bit and then it comes back and you're like, yes, I'm so excited. And that it just, for my brain, it keeps it fresh. So that's how we do it. It's not the only way. It's just the way that we've chosen to do it. And it really, I think, serves us well in multi-purposes. So that's how we preach.
And I think and again, we're sitting here as pastors on staff, like we know kind of the inner workings of this. And there might be people part of our church who literally never think about what's going on besides, this is our current series. But I totally understand there are some people who are like, oh man, we're like, I want to keep going in Exodus or I want to keep going in Romans. Like I don't want to finish. But what is great is like, we will pick right back up. We don't skip verses. We don't skip chapter. Like we're going to pick back up with Exodus next January.
And so here's maybe another little ghost reason that I think is important. I think in a church culture like ours, a modern 2026 Western American church culture, where people largely, I think it's safe to say this, people largely hop from church to church over the course of their time. And I'm not trying to make a value judgment there. Here's what I'll say, just from my experience and what I believe convictionally. The longer you stay in a church and sit under the faithful teaching of God's word, the deeper and more meaningful it becomes. And so, I mean, I think it took us 3 or 4 years to do 1st and 2nd Samuel. If you stayed at Fathom Church for those 3 or 4 years and worked your way through both of those historical books, I mean, the riches of understanding, the growth, like the exposure to that much scripture in a Bible centric kind of Bible preaching church is just going to serve you so well, as opposed to a 4-week series on this and a 3-week series on that. And then I'm going to go to this other church because they're going to do and I just think, there should be benefits to longevity. And one of the benefits is, especially if you stay at Fathom, is you get to consume a good chunk of the scriptures. Like you've been on staff here for 7 years, Kyle, almost 7 years. And when you start to think about the breadth of material that we've covered in those 7 years, that's going to be discipleship, like fodder, discipleship fodder in your heart, in your family's life, as you just, hey, we've covered this book. We've covered that book. We did a deep dive and we didn't skip any of those crazy 2nd Samuel passages. That's a huge win.
Totally.
So I think that's a ancillary benefit to this kind of preaching.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we're not here to bash topical preaching or whatever like that, but there is something to say about like, man, when you're maybe you've been a part of a church, and I have, where it's like every month it's a 4-week series on this, 4-week series on that, 4-week series on that, and it's something different. That can be beneficial, but there is really something when you have gone through maybe a couple years and you kind of get to close the Bible, like close that book and be like, we just did. And we didn't just, get through 1st and 2nd Samuel quickly and skim through everything like that. It's like to look back and be like, wow, we're about going deep here.
Yeah.
And we do go deep in every one of our books that we're
you're
studying.
drinking deeply from the well, as opposed to just taking a saucer off the top and sipping on it. We've drunk deeply of Exodus for the last 20 weeks, and now we get to pause and now we're moving into the Gospel of Luke.
Well, and I want to in a second we're going to talk about like how to kind of approach studying a gospel because we've done because it's the Gospels. It's different, but I do. And let me just say this quick thing. One other thing and you talked about the different literary styles of it and everything like that. I love that we do the Old Testament narrative. We do a gospel. We do an epistle. We're doing letters. It'd be like if sometime we're like, let's go through Proverbs or Psalms or something like that. It's like it is so good to see this book that we that we do read daily, yearly, and how different each of the books are that make up the Holy Scriptures, and how you can get so many different things from different literary styles. And some you might like a little bit more, like an Old Testament narrative. It might be easier to follow that kind of stuff. But it's like, but some people are like, I love the deep theology of Romans or what Paul is writing down. It's like, I think that's really cool. And so if you're not used to it, it's like, it can be different, but it's like, that's a good difference.
And it will increase our biblical literacy. Right. So, all the studies show that most evangelical Christians are very biblically illiterate. And just don't know their Bibles well. And you spend a decade with us here at Fathom, and Lord willing, you're going to know your Bible much better, whether it's through our yearly read, through our small groups, through our Bible studies, and especially through our preaching ministry. You should get a good grasp of this book the longer you're here.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so as we move into the Gospel of Luke, I know you're about to preach on this coming Sunday, but give us just a little bit about who wrote the Gospel of Luke, but also just some other things we need to know about that. And then I want to go into maybe some major themes, and then how can we be prepared as a church to study kind of going back to a gospel. So let's start with like the Gospel of Luke. Also, like why did you pick the Gospel of Luke this time? And just some little tidbits of information as we're about to study it.
Yeah. Okay. So Luke is the third gospel in our New Testament. It's obviously one of the 3 synoptic gospels. We talk about that Matthew, Mark, and Luke are synoptic gospels. John is kind of in its own category. The reason why we say that is that the synoptic gospels share common sources. So much of what you see in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, if you were to harmonize those and put them next to each other, you'll see that there's overlapping pieces. And so they share a lot of the same sources. John seems to have a different source material that he's working from, but that's just interesting stuff. Luke is written by, we think, Luke. I mean, that's by his name's sake. And so Luke is an interesting guy to think about. Luke is he's a physician. And so some of what we're going to get in the Gospel of Luke is more technical language. We're going to get more details. Luke is the longest of the Gospels. Luke is also written to predominantly, I mean, these are generalities, but a predominantly Greek reader, as opposed to like Matthew, who is writing predominantly to a Jewish reader. The reason why we think that is because Matthew quotes the Old Testament all the time, things that a Jew would understand. Luke is actually in the beginning of Luke chapter 1, he talks about a man named Theophilus, who he is writing this gospel for. And so I'll just read the first couple verses of Luke. This is how it begins. It starts with this dedication to Theophilus. He says, "Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things that have been accomplished among us." So Luke is acknowledging that a number of people have tried to write gospels and compiled a narrative of these things. Verse 2, "Just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word have delivered them to us, it seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely for some time past, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, that you may have certainty concerning the things you have been taught." So what we get from that introduction is that Luke he has researched these things. He is trying to write an orderly account. He is writing them for this follower, Theophilus. That's a Greek name. So we think it's a Greek reader. And the purpose is that Theophilus might have certainty concerning the things that he has been taught. So we are assuming that he has been taught things about Jesus of Nazareth, about the gospel. And Luke is now saying, I want to give you the account so that you can be sure of these things.
Sure.
So it's a fascinating read. Luke for my whole life has been my whole Christian life, I guess. So the last 20 years, Luke has been my favorite gospel. I just think it's really interesting. I think the way that he writes is really, it's really detailed, and I just really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to studying this. The other thing that's really cool is that Luke has a companion book,
right? Yeah.
Which is Acts. So Luke, the author, wrote the gospel according to Luke, and then he also wrote the Acts of the Apostles, the fifth book of our New Testament. So in reality, you could read Luke chapter 1 all the way through Acts chapter 28, and you would have essentially two editions, or two, part 1 and part 2 of one long story, starting with the birth of Christ and ending with the death of Paul, and really fascinating two series novel there. So I think it's going to be a fun study working through the Gospel of Luke.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is really cool, and you did say like the Gospel of Luke is longer. It does have a lot of those, I think I'm going to say like more famous stories that we like to hear, Prodigal Son, Good Samaritan, those sorts of things. Sure. And so that's like those kind of things like that. That's the kind of stuff that I think most people kind of recognize. And it's like, that's what makes this one, I think, one of the reasons what makes Luke just really fun and wanting to like kind of get after it. 'Cause it's those parables or stories that we have heard so many times before. And so to get the chance to dive like really deep into that is really awesome. Really cool.
Yep.
So what are like some of the major themes that we'll see? Obviously this like Jesus's life, death, resurrection. What are some other like kind of major themes that Luke likes to sort of highlight? Maybe that's different than the other gospels, but just some of the things that we could be prepared for.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to see a lot of miracles in Luke's gospel. So we're going to see a lot about the divinity of Christ, which I think is going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
You're also going to see a lot about social justice and kind of justice to the poor, to the needy, to the outcast. I think that's going to be really good. There are some long teaching sections of Luke, but it's not quite as dominant as you might find in Matthew or in John. The teaching is there, but it's not quite as big. The thing that, so here's a stat that's interesting. Luke has unique material, and this is what you have already mentioned. About 90% of Luke is not found in the other three gospels.
That's crazy.
So that's interesting to note, that Luke has a lot of distinctive content that just isn't found in Matthew or in Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's debates on where Luke got that content from, but all that to say, Matthew and Mark, you can really read those two books, and there's a lot of carryover. Matthew shares about 97% of Mark's gospel, so like you get that. Luke kind of
just copying off of each other like a test. Or
well, I mean,
they're buddies.
They were sharing. I mean, these are they really are. They're sharing.
Yeah.
They're sharing. Hey, did you remember when that happened? Oh yeah, I remember when that. So that a lot of that is happening.
Yeah.
In the early church. Luke has a unique perspective. Some people think that Luke got a lot of his gospel from Mary, actually interviewing the mother of Jesus. So, because there's a lot of even especially in like the birth narrative, you get a lot of insight that you don't get in Matthew's gospel on the birth narrative from what it seems like is Mary's perspective. So I think there's real interesting things that we're going to see in this book. Cool. It's just different. Now, John is wildly different, wildly different. Yeah. But Matthew, if you were with us for the last number of years and you studied Matthew with us, as we study Luke, you'll start to, it feels different. I mean, it's got a different texture than Matthew does. Sometimes it's similar stories. Sometimes it's similar points. But it's going to feel a little bit different. And I like it. I just think it's going to be, it's going to be an interesting read.
Yeah. Okay. From the pastor, how can we as a church, as we are going into a gospel, studying a gospel, which is different than X's, it's different than Romans, something like, let's just say, especially for those of us who have been Christians, maybe our whole lives, a long time. And it's a gospel. Yes, it's different. A lot of these things, maybe we have heard many, many, many times before. So from you, Pastor, how do we how can we enter this new series talking about a gospel, maybe something we've heard so many times? How can we be ready and kind of prepare our hearts and our ears to hear and learn maybe something new? Like how do we go into studying something that maybe we've read in our Bible plan every single year again, with kind of new eyes, new ears, new heart to just kind of inviting God to do something new to us in something that we've read so many times?
Yeah. So I think when I read Gospels, I like to come at it with a question normally. And the question I like to come at it with is, what is this? What is this teaching me about who Jesus is? Like I want to always come to the Gospels with the question of Christology, the study of Christ. Like, who is Jesus? And what we're going to see is that all through the Gospel of Luke, we're going to find high Christology. Like, Luke centers on Jesus as this perfect Son of Man who comes to seek and save the lost. And so I want us, as we're studying the Gospel of Luke, to not just walk into this with a bunch of assumptions about who Jesus is, but to look at these stories, to look at these events, to look at the teachings, the miracles, all of these things, and say, okay, what does this teach us about who Jesus is? And what does this teach us about what Jesus is about? Who is Jesus and what is he about? And I think if we do that, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to grow a lot. But then, on top of that, I'll just encourage you to, we're going to do the study guides again, or the scripture journals again.
Those.
So we'll have those this Sunday. I would encourage you to stay engaged with it, to start working through, taking notes, writing down questions, praying through the text. Man, like, if you feel like it this summer, just start reading the Gospel of Luke. Maybe you read a chapter every day. Like, the more that you immerse yourself in this book, the more you're going to get out of it. So if you just come and you just listen to me preach, that's fine. But you're going to get more out of it the more you chew on it, the more you process it, the more you pray on it, the more you work through application. So engaging as deeply as you can into the text, I think, is going to, and we're going to see this even in our study of Luke, that Christ is calling us to deep places with him. And that's what I think we're going to wade in deep to this gospel.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited.
You should be, dude.
I'm
You
so
should
excited.
be so
Should
excited.
be so excited.
I really am excited.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far we're going to make it. Like, we're just going to take it bit by bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it's going to take us. It could take us 10 years. It could take us longer.
Right.
Here's the one good thing. We've really already done the first couple of chapters,
Right.
because Luke chapter 1 and 2 is the Christmas stuff.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, we're not starting with Luke 1:1.
No, we're gonna pick up a little bit later because I've already preached a
'Cause we've
bunch of sermons on the first 2 chapters of Luke.
So we didn't skip it. You can just go find it,
Right.
Because we've done it.
I actually looked. I've preached 15 sermons
Good grief.
on Luke chapters 1 and 2, but that's because every Christmas or every other
That
Christmas,
would
or every-
literally be this whole summer.
yeah. I mean, it would.
Yeah,
But-
it would take our whole summer
but
to get
this is-
through those.
So Matthew has 28 chapters. Okay, so that feels like it's the
Yeah.
longest because Luke has 24 chapters. But like Luke
There's
chapter 1
There's
is
some long chapters.
80 verses long. Luke chapter 1 is 80 verses. So this is a much longer gospel.
Mhm.
And so yeah, we're gonna pick it up right after Christmas, the
Cool.
Christmas material, and start jumping in. And yeah, we'll take it for as long as the Lord has us in the Gospel of Luke for the foreseeable summer
Yeah.
future at Fathom Church.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. So buckle up, church. We're starting Luke in the summers, and that's just what it's going to be until we're done.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Let's go.
Let's
Come
go.
on in. Come on in. The water is fine.
And
It's-
I really do want to reiterate what you said. Like, get your hands on one of the journal study guide things that we have. Like, jump in with us.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we say that about every sermon series, every Sunday. It's like, don't just sit there and listen to whoever's up there. Like, jump in with us.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to learn. I think the Lord is going to do
Mhm.
really good things through this series.
I agree.
So,
Well, thanks, Chris, for chatting about the Gospel of Luke.
you bet, buddy.
I'm excited. Hopefully you're excited too, church. And we will see you this week as we start the Gospel of Luke for the summer. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.